Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. MES is continuing to restore the damages caused by the hurricane in the south of the country and prepares for yet another strike. An entire national company will be created to promote Expo 2017. People wonder who will pay for this grandiose event. Young man who flipped a bird to the motorcade of Senator Mami was released. However, he escaped from journalists upon seeing the cameras. Supreme Court on Tuesday remitted the sentences of defendants convicted for riots at Shedbeh station in 2011. The charges concern 3 out of 4 sentenced over this case. As reported by Azatik Radio, the sentence for Kazimurat Abezov was reduced from 7 to 4 years in jail, for Bakhadjan Gabidyanov from 5 to 3, and the same for Yerzhan Mambetov. However, the last was pardoned. The only one whose sentence was not reduced is Nurbalat Sabirov with 4 years in jail.
The verdict on the Shedbeh case was passed last May by the Mangostar Regional Court. The residents of the settlement were tried for events on December 17, 2011, when clashes broke out between the police and locals who demanded the ceasefire in Zhanaozian. One person, a fireman who took the side of the people, died during the clashes, shot by the police. Human rights activists noted that trials were held with multiple violations and the accused were subjected to tortures.
The leadership of South Kazakhstan region intends to liquidate the consequences of hurricane which hit the country last Saturday in Suzak district on its own. Currently, the preliminary damage caused by the deluge is estimated at $5,500. 19 schools, 5 hospitals and 2 mosques and over 2,000 houses were destroyed by the hurricane. The power lines were interrupted and electric poles overturned. 6 villages of Suzak district were practically cut off from civilization. The restoration works were initiated in all of the affected areas. Authorities promised to liquidate the consequences of the hurricane in 2 weeks.
Look what happened here. The roof is gone and the mirror is smashed. We had to cover it with a carpet. Everyone was inside when it happened. I was there with my 5 children. I could not go anywhere. The wind was so strong. The storm was devastating, with gusts of wind reaching 35 meters per second, blowing off roofs, breaking trees and overturning cars. Local residents had to endure it for 12 hours, with some even labeling the occurrence the end of the world. I was really scared for the kids. They're only starting their lives. We have witnessed the wrath of God. This has been predicted in the Bible, and the prophecies are coming true. It seemed as if huge airplanes were flying over our roof, which was eventually blown away. The snowfall was so heavy, I could not even open the door. The Dalkyan village in Suzak district was hit the hardest by the natural disaster. This is how a brand new local school looks like now. Fortunately, there was no one inside when the disaster struck, although normally there could be up to 500 people on a regular day. Almost all of the windows were smashed, the roof is gone, and the slabs destroyed by rafters. 10 houses in the village have been confirmed no longer suitable for living. On top of everything, there's still no electricity, with water and heat supply restored only recently. The works to restore the power supply are currently underway. A diesel power station has been installed at the bakery to ensure residents can get bread. All medical sites have been provided with autonomous power supply, with the necessary temperature constantly maintained, so that there should be no problems for the patients. Officials are not going to ask for financial aid from the central budget. Local authorities say they have enough money to deal with the consequences of the storm. The money will be allocated for the district budget and regional reserve fund.
Currently, the regional departments of emergency situations report of 30 victims. Meanwhile, the Minister of Emergencies reported of just 10 who were injured by the debris of falling tiles. They were rendered medical aid and their condition is not severe, said Vladimir Bashko.
On Tuesday, communication in the disaster-affected areas was successfully restored, as well as the heating supply to Zhanatas and Karatau cities of Zhambul region. There are still minor problems caused by the residents draining water from heating pipes in hope to warm their houses faster, which yields a reverse effect. Rescue teams encourage citizens to arm themselves with patience until the arrival of 60 wagons with glass panes and roofing sheets. The country's principal rescuer refrains from providing a time frame for mitigating the damage. Currently, a large number of working teams, along with power engineers from the neighboring Kyrgyzstan, are struggling to reverse the disaster effects. The aggregate damage is currently estimated estimated at $16.5 million, while the final figures are yet to be specified. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Emergencies is getting ready for another strike of disaster by blocking the national importance highways due to poor visibility and severe weather conditions. We have received a storm alert from the Hydrometeorological Center. The experts report significant increase in wind speed. We hope that this time the weather conditions will not be as severe, but we are ready to cope in any case.
Meanwhile, Kazakhstan is preparing for blackouts. Yet another storm warning was announced in the area. On January 13th and 14th, parts of the regional center and several districts of Kazakhstan region were left with no power, heating and even natural gas.
A strong wind rooted trees and severely damaged the roofing of a city boarding school. 30 power substations were taken out by weather, with residents of several micro-districts spending 2 days in the dark. Unfortunately for Kazakhstan, power cuts have become quite a common thing recently due to the poor state of electrical networks. According to power engineers, the system remains in use since the Soviet times. The outdated substations were the first to go. The external power boxes cannot cope with harsh weather pressure. They were filled with snow, which led to power failures.
3 major traffic accidents occurred in Pavlodar region within minutes. Cars crashed practically in the same area. According to preliminary data, 3 people died, another 10 to 15 injured.
A dozen of ambulances, rescue as well as traffic police cars went to the area between the regional center and Lenin suburbs where 3 car accidents had occurred. According to unconfirmed information, the victims who died in a traffic accident were women. There were 3 injured children. It should be noted that earlier a storm warning had been declared for the region. The slippery road condition is likely to be a duty version of these accidents. People ignore the storm warnings and still go out of the city. The roads are very slippery, and when drivers break the speed limit, that leads to traffic accidents. This has been the 2nd accident during the hour.
Storm warnings were announced in most of the regions in Kazakhstan by KAZ Hydromet. Weather forecasters claim that unfavorable weather conditions will remain on the territory of 9 regions until January 17th, after which the moderately cold days will alternate with thaws. While meteorologists recorded flooding and devastating storms in the south of the country, the capital witnessed an average monthly rainfall. The blizzard lasted until lunch, and community services were busy until late afternoon cleaning up the snow, which reached a 30-centimeter level. The operation involved all 700 units of special equipment and almost 350 people. 30,000 cubic meters of snow were removed from Astana overnight. Meteorologists explained this abnormal weather by an approaching cyclone. In this regard, a storm warning has been announced in Kazakhstan for the next few days, with anticipated strong winds and heavy snowfalls. The weather is promised to get back to normal after January 17th. Later, the cyclone will be followed by an anticyclone coming to Kazakhstan from the Black Sea after January 16th. Therefore, the wind and temperature are expected to decrease almost through the entire Kazakhstan. Residents of Talgar city who live on Lermontova Street are playing extreme games with the state for 5 years in a row. In other words, they risk of being left under the rubble of their own apartments as their houses are practically falling apart. Moreover, residents have no natural gas supply and electricity blackouts are quite often, even though the tariffs for electricity are the highest in Almaty region. More details in the next report. Residential buildings like these were commissioned in Talgar 5 years ago. The budget apartments were built as part of the state program Affordable Housing, with tenants paying $350 per square meter of new property. But now house owners never had the chance to fully settle in, since buildings literally started to fall apart soon after housewarmings. On top of everything, electricity rates have also gone up, adding to the elevating cost of repairs. We're still off the official grid and have to pay 15 cents per kilowatt of electricity, which is the highest rate across Almaty region. Condominium management says the in-house and total electricity meters show different figures, and they're forced to split the difference for all tenants, which raises the end rates. People would be happy to ditch the unlucky housing, but they cannot, as they still have 20 years of mortgage to pay. And in addition to electricity use, they also face problems with natural gas supply. The buildings are not linked to the gas pipe for some unknown reason, which forces the residents to use gas tanks. That is, however, not the end of the troubles either. The drainage picks up thawing snow, and since the basement is poorly waterproofed, it gets flooded, clogging sewer pipes and letting the waste into the building. We are forced to pump it both during the winter and the summer. This might sound surprising, but tenants managed to tolerate the situation for 5 years, and only 3 months ago decided to turn to the district prosecutor. Unfortunately, the results of the ensuing construction quality control inspection said the housing does not pose any threats. The young man who flipped a bird to the motorcade of Senator Kairat Mami had no intention to talk to the press. Upon being freed from the detention facility, he escaped from journalists.
The 21-year-old Kanat Shalakhaev was arrested for 5 days last week for flipping the finger at the passing motorcade with the Senate chairman Kairat Mami inside. Most officials have already said the punishment was only fair, although the internet community holds a different opinion, even launching a movement for the freedom of expressive gestures.
I didn't say anything. The chairman of the space agency, Talgat Musabayev, refuted his statement regarding the lease of Baikonur space launch facility. On December 10th of last year, during the session of Majlis, the head of Kaskosmos informed that Kazakhstan will gradually move away from the Baikonur lease terms, also mentioning the transfer of Baikonur city under the Kazakh jurisdiction. However, on Tuesday, he changed his mind.
I haven't made any statements. I never said anything. This reaction is to be expected, as not only Musabayev but even Deputy Prime Minister Kairat Kilimbetov, the head of the Intergovernmental Panel on the Baikonur Space Launch Facility, now avoids making any public statements. In particular, Musabayev has been heavily criticized by the president's daughter, MP Darika Nazarbayeva, who called the entire space field a black hole in the budget. About a month later, Moscow sent an official note to the government of Kazakhstan demanding to clarify Musabayev's statements that were unduly harsh and outside his jurisdiction. A representative of the foreign ministry later said that the media misinterpreted the astronaut's words, who only meant the growth of Kazakhstan's but not the reduction of Russia's participation in Baikonur's development, as it would be wrong to miss the opportunity of cooperation with such an important global player. Could you please comment on the controversies regarding Baikonur?
A special national company, Astana Expo 2017, will be created for the international exhibition in Kazakhstan. It will work on all organizational issues of this event. The preparations are already underway. The plan of action was discussed on Tuesday. The main issues are financing and responsibility. Details next.
On Tuesday, government officials revealed that only a purpose-funded national company will be able to prepare Kazakhstan for Expo 2017. Structurally, it follows the pyramid of the State Commission running the organizing committee, which will manage working HQs. The deputy chairman of the Council of Ministers, Kairat Kilimbetov, will be in charge of the organizing committee. Our president emphasized that the corporation as an entity must help ensure that everything is built, will be working and bringing benefit to the capital and Kazakhstan in general. Everything is planned out already, and there is no need to invent the wheel. Now get to work. But experience has shown that nobody's inventing the wheel really. Every trendy event in official Astana raises a public question of who will be billed for the feast. Incidentally, a few days ago, the financial police disclosed the embezzlement of $150,000 by the head of the Directorate of Asian Games 2011. On December 10th, 2012, the Department of Financial Police in Almaty initiated a criminal case against the head of the Directorate of the Asian Winter Games in 2011, Mr. Sizdikov, who is suspected of embezzling over $150,000 allocated for the concert dedicated to the 20th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence. The statement gave all the more reason to talk about the old bureaucratic hobby of splitting the budget. Prominent sportscaster Geny Tuliganov shares his thoughts on the matter. No one is held accountable for the funds spent hand over fist on various sports or social and political events or holidays related to anniversaries. Therefore, dishonest people inevitably get into the public pocket. I'm glad the investigation has been initiated because we will be hosting the World Student Games in 2017. At the same time, politician Bolat Abilov believes the statements of the financial police do not directly relate to the Asian Games. More than $500 million was spent for the renovation of Shumbulak Center alone in preparation for the Asian Games, whereas the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer and Nagano cost $1 billion each in the entirety. There are several times more countries and 10 times as many athletes participating in the Winter Olympics compared to the Asian Games, but the total amount spent for the Asian Games in 2011 was $1.65 billion, which is almost as much as the budget of the most expensive Olympics in history held in Vancouver in 2010. The businessman inside Bolat Abilov taught him how to count money, which made him raise a valid political question of why do the supervising authorities and the leaders of the ruling party in Nuratan never look into the matter.
The defenders of Kokzhaila Gorge proposed the developers to move the ski resort to another part of Zaili Alatau. The press conference of environmentalists in Almaty was topped off with a festival of bards. Next report has more.
Environmentalists, biologists, and bards gathered to voice another protest against the Almaty city administration's initiative to open a ski resort in the Kokjai-Lao mountain area. During the public debates, experts tried to alert the officials to the risk of endangered species extinction, along with mud flows and urban airshed alterations caused by extraction of 27 hectares of timber to accommodate the resort construction site. However, the environmental objections went unheeded. On what grounds did the city administration take disposal of the Ile-Alatau National Park territory? According to the land code, assigning lands to the city's administrative boundaries does not give this kind of authority. The architect Andrei Starkov, who once designed the Shimburak ski runs, considers the Kokjai-Lao project to be an unviable venture. He suggested the Turgen Plateau as an alternative ski resort object. The construction investors assure that increased competition will result in lower prices as compared to Shimburak rates, which is not true, as cumbersome infrastructure and costly operation are sure to affect the ski pass cost. Meanwhile, not everyone can afford the current Shimburak ticket rates. The resident of an alpine corner of Germany, Dagmar Schreider, witnessed the European Alps turning into a massive construction site. Now she regrets missing the opportunity to unite with fellow citizens and stand up for her beautiful homeland. To seize another chance, the foreign activist has joined the ranks of ecologists to promote ecotourism in Kazakhstan. And there are a lot of opportunities for developing educational tourism for the Almaty citizens who have never been to Kokjai-Lao and would like to see the beauty of Kazakhstan nature. Opponents of construction collected around 4,000 signatures for the appeal to the government officials. They expressed readiness to continue hindering the scandalous project's implementation by holding protest campaigns and flash mobs.
Welcome or no entrance. Many Almaty residents who are tired of traffic jams doubt that the entry ban to Almaty for vehicles from other cities will improve the situation. And even though the authorities promised to introduce innovations by 2017, the debates are ongoing already now.
This is what the situation is like on the crossroads of Almaty at the end of the day. It is very crucial to resolve the issue of traffic jams in the city, says Murat Tilibekov, an Almaty resident for most of his life. He, however, does not support the local administration's idea to restrict the entrance of non-resident traffic into the city. One of the key requirements for the development of cities, countries, or regions in general is the expansion of transportation links and free movement of people from one place to another at any point. It applies to any residential area. Once the president expressed his discontent with traffic congestion in Almaty, Mayor Ahmedjan Yusinov announced 4 new bus terminals to be built behind the city boundaries, complete with adjacent parking lots accommodating 5,000 vehicles. Supposedly, that is where non-residents will have to leave their cars. According to calculations, the imported vehicles produce 54 tons of emissions per year. That exceeds the level of emissions from all thermal power plants, industrial plants located in the city, and private residential areas, which use individual sources of heating. The mayor specified that there will not be a total ban on non-resident traffic in the city. Only vehicles that do not comply with environmental requirements will be kept outside, while their owners will have to start using public transportation. The ideas are great, and now it's only a matter of implementation. In this regard, I reiterate that, first of all, we need to increase the share of public transportation in passenger traffic by at least 33%. The proposed solution will not improve air pollution and only increase corruption, says environmentalist Mels Yeleosizov. Should the authorities try cutting access to Almaty for a large number of people, the situation is bound to result in additional tension. Everything should be done comprehensively, and blocking city access for rural populations is completely wrong. These people in return may block the roads, and that will put a stop to everything. The program was designed to be implemented before 2017, and officials have not yet published the total numbers for its financing. But rough calculations are easy to make, considering that $331 million will be spent on the development of transport in Almaty in 2013 alone.
From now on in Kazakhstan, credit cards must be accepted the same as cash. The owners of stores, cafes, beauty salons, gas stations and many others are required to install special equipment. The customers are in the win situation, however, the reality looks not that pretty as written in the decree of the government.
Musician Yerlan Kokeyev is used to hearing excuses such as, "Sorry, we do not accept credit cards," or "the card reader is out of service," and this always means trouble since he does not carry cash all the time. It is a real issue when you have to relieve something valuable, go look for an ATM, withdraw the cash and come back to pay the bill. I was lucky to avoid it as people believe me for some reason. I just tell them that I'll be back. The musician is also an entrepreneur running his own nightclub where this particular issue was resolved 4 years ago. Credit cards are accepted here, which is very convenient for everyone. Sometimes this system makes even my job easier because I can track results and it saves time for entrepreneurs like me. The less cash transactions made means the fewer cases of stealing. Right now, the excuse that payment cards are not accepted is a direct violation of the law. The government approved a list of small to medium-sized businesses which are required to have credit card readers. If a restaurant or a store refuses to accept clients' plastic, they can actually call the police, say human rights activists. Call the police to register the violation. Once it's done, they will decide what to do next. The issue, however, is not as simple as it seems. Neither businesses nor banks are really ready to completely replace cash operations, at least according to the Independent Association of Entrepreneurs. The law does not specify who should provide stores with all the necessary equipment, which could come costly for the owners of smaller boutiques. Besides, many residents of rural areas have not even seen credit cards in their lives. Thus, business owners have to look for and buy the equipment on their own, which could cost $400 and higher. In fact, only the businessmen bear responsibility now, not the banks. So the next time a tax inspector comes, he will find the entrepreneur and not the banks that did not give him the card reader. In this dispute over the credit cards, banks have their own arguments, as there are simply not enough card readers. It appears that the decision of the government and its efforts to combat the shady economy is not correlated with reality, which dictates entirely different rules.
15 Nursultans. This is the number of children born in Kazakhstan on the first President Day who were named after the head of state. The data was provided on Tuesday by the Statistics Agency, while the most popular names in 2012 were Yarasil for boys and Ayaru for girls.
Some of the citizens were quite creative naming their children after characters in Turkish soap operas and Bollywood stars like Nazmi Khan and Shahrukh Khan. Others went for simpler and clearer names like Brilliant. There were also registered Boborbeks, Dilnozalidis and Gartmuts. Yet the little Yolka, which stands for the pine tree, from Temirtau, who was lucky or unlucky to be born on New Year's night, did not make it on the list. The Agency of Statistics also published the data on prices and rates, which literally skyrocketed in the past year. The groceries in particular went up more than 5%, while non-food products increased by 3.5%. The cost of various services also increased significantly. Passenger transportation fares increased by 12%. Communication services went up by 13.6%. For instance, postal services jumped by 56%. The line rental increased by 20%, while the housing and public utility services generally went up over the past year by 8.2%.
This is all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.